Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. And I want to start with an avodah that has to do with boundaries that dead fences and definitions of who we are in this world. I want to expand on it because, well, Rini, I see your hand and I want to see how do I put my picture so that we don't have to, I don't know how to do it. Okay, whatever. David, whenever he downloads it, he's like, just put your picture. Why are you putting everyone else's picture? I don't know how to do it. Okay, I'm just leaving it. How do we create a gaded? How do we create a definition? And what do we and how do we walk around in this world? So I want to talk about an avodah that I did this week, and it was an avodah that took me a full week to muddle through it, and it was an issue that was ongoing, and I didn't take the bull by the horn, and I want to tell you what the avodah was, and why I didn't take the issue by the horn, and how by doing a draw, I was able to see what my issue is. So every week, since I moved to Tel Aviv, my house is considerably smaller. And because my house is considerably smaller, I have one area where it's my office and where I teach from and where I do my work from. And then we have another 3 bedrooms. But my area is halfway in the public space. Now, whenever I give the class, I ask my husband if he could please not be home when I give the class. And I give this class, and right after that, I give a class to the woman of the shul. So I tell Ralph, could you please not be home for a couple of, from 6:30 over here till 10 o'clock. And if you want to come home when I'm giving the class to the Israelis, so just come and go into your room. Now, why don't I want him to be in the house while I give the class? It's not even an issue. It's not an issue of why I do want, why I don't want. This is what I want. When I give the class, I want to be home alone. So every week, 6:30 comes, and at 6:30, he starts getting organized to leave. Like, what I would want is, could you please, 6:20, be out of the house? But 6:30 is when he just starts to get rolling. And then 20 to 7, and he's still around and finding his shoes and whatever. A quarter to, he usually 10 to, he's out of the house. Now, last week, he was, I asked him, could you please leave? Like, today's my class, just make sure to go. So last week, he started rummaging, as I'm giving my class, he started rummaging under the desk to get his shoes, to find his shoes and to leave. And I was so upset. Like, I asked you to leave, and why aren't you leaving? This is what I'm thinking in my head. And he got home that night, and then I tell him, as we're going to bed, because it was after I was finishing my second class as well, like, Ralph, when I start my class at 6:30, I'd really rather you not be in the house. Now, part of the reasons are that I feel it's a class for women, and it's a class that's given in a certain way that's not very intellectual, and we don't it's I feel like it's a very profound and simple class, and it's not Ralph's style, and I'd rather him not hear it, and it's for women. So as I was telling him, why were we waiting so long? So he goes to me, just go in a room and give your class. Like, why are you telling me what to do, to leave the house or whatever? Go into a room and give your class. And I flipped. Not at that minute, but the next day, I thought to myself, but the other 2 rooms, they're bedrooms, and our house downsized. And I used to have an office in Pnei Kedem. And over here, I don't have an office, and it's open to everyone. And you want me to go into a bedroom and give the class from a bed? How dare you? And what nerve, and I'm in Tel Aviv, and I'm here for you, and you can't even give me an hour and a half of when I want to give the class on my own. So then, as I was stewing, I called up Michal and I said, this is the story. So she said, you know what? Let's do a drawer. And I opened up a drawer in my kitchen and it has my cooking utensils. And first we had to clear the whole drawer off. And then I defined, this is a drawer that I want to have my cooking utensils, like my wooden spoons, my knives, and my grater. That's what I want to have there. And so I wiped down the drawer. The definition of the drawer was cooking utensils, and I decided what I wanted to be. So I put in the wooden spoons. I put the knives, and I put the graters, and I found myself like having a couple of other things that I just wanted to stick in that drawer, like the muffin tins, or the things to make little petite chocolates, or all the cork, like the wine openers, whatever. And Michal was saying, no, this definition, the defining word of this drawer is cooking utensils, and these are not cooking utensils. You can't put it in the drawer. But what do you tell yourself that you allow yourself to put other things in this cooking utensils drawer? Like, you have so many other things over here. What do you tell yourself? So I tell myself, it doesn't matter. It's just that I'll just, I don't feel like finding another spot for it. I'm just going to, I'm just going to leave it on the side. And that's what I tell myself. And she was saying that that's how I function in life. In life, like every single week when I was asking Ralph, could you be out of the house at 6:30? And he wasn't, and he was, I was not able to, say, this is really important for me, and I'd like you to keep with the time. And if you can't keep with the time, I need to find another solution for myself. In other words, what I was doing with Ralph is that what was my definition and what was his definition? My definition was a beggar. I was begging him every week, can I please have the house to myself? And who was he? He was he was bestowing a favor of, I was a beggar and he was bestowing a favor. Those were our definitions. I wasn't a wife and he wasn't a husband. I was a beggar and he was bestowing a favor. Now, do I want to be defined as someone who's a beggar? No, I don't want to be defined as a beggar. Just like the previous woman that we were talking about, with the bicycle, she was in the definition of a beggar, begging for the bike to be put together, going from her husband to her father-in-law to the in-laws' house. And they were the ones who were the bike builders, right? The beggar and the bike builder. I was the beggar and he was the favor, the favor giver. And being in, now I want to say Ralph is not the story. Ralph could tell me, yes, I'm going to go, and no, I'm not going to go, and it's good for me and it's not good for me. Ralph isn't the story at all. The story is that the pattern that I take in my life, just like that drawer, is that I allow things to happen, even though I'm not happy with it, but I just feel like, okay, it doesn't matter. It's just a little bit. He's just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Just like I was telling in my cooking utensil drawer, I was putting, okay, so there's going to be a corkscrew here, and there's going to be a little bit of a muffin, and the chocolate things, they'll be over there. But that wasn't the definition. That wasn't the definition of the drawer. So I cannot, if the drawer is defined as cooking utensils, nothing else can go into it. And I don't want to define myself as a beggar. So what do I need to do in order to get out of this mess? What I need to do is I need to build a fence around myself and see what's written on my fence and what's written on my husband's fence. Now, what I have written on my fence is, between me and my husband, I want to be a wife. And my husband's fence is a husband's fence. I don't want him to be the gatekeeper. I don't want him to be the favor bestower. I don't want him to be like, I don't want to give him any other job but my husband, and I'm his wife. Now, what do I want to put in my wife's drawer? So there's two things I want to put in my wife's drawer. I want to put in my wife's drawer. One, it says like, what is Isha Nesu'ah? What is an Isha Nesu'ah? Isha Nesu'ah is, the word Nesu'ah means Noset Enayim Leba'ala, who looks at her husband from like as someone who's higher than her. Looking up to your husband. That's an Isha Nesu'ah. I look up to my husband. And very frequently, we don't look up to our husbands. We think that we know better and we could do better and we're more competent and we're more able and we're more, we're able to juggle and we're able to multitask, et cetera, et cetera. Hardly anyone looks at their husbands, looks up to their husbands. But what we want to have in my wife's drawer is that I'm able to look up to my husband. And another thing is I want to respect my husband. That's another thing. I want to respect my husband. Now, those are the things I want to have on my fence. Now, I also want a place where I can give my class privately. And I want a place not in a bedroom or have to sit on a bed. I want something that's very mechubad. Very mechubad means very respectable. In other words, a nice table, a good computer, good Wi-Fi, good internet, good everything, so that I can give the class and be in my prime, like have the best conditions to give the class. Now, all this time, just like the woman that Adele bought, I was going to my husband and expecting him to provide me with my tov. What is my tov? So then I asked myself, so of course, first of all, I screamed at Ralph, realizing that it is not his story and it is not his problem and it's not his issue, nothing like that. It is totally my responsibility to take care of my tov. I said, I need an office and it's not happening in the house because I have to ask him every day. So I said, you know what, Ralph? You have an office in the shul that you don't like to use. And it's a beautiful office. We could get internet over there. I'll use the office. You like to be home. You like to stay home. You don't like that I tell you to leave. I will use your office in the shul and you'll use the house because I need to be out of the house a couple of hours a day and just be by myself in the office. It's not only the hour and a half. That's when I realized that I was just constricting myself and contracting myself to just, that 1.5 hours that I wanted to be out of the house. But I realized that I would like a couple of hours to myself. I would like to have a couple of hours in an office to myself. So I said, you don't like to use your office in the shul. I'll use it. I'll make it my office and you'll have the house as your office. And that's going to be my office. Whenever I want to give a class, I'll go there. Whenever I want to do my work, I'll go there. When I want to have a private meeting, I'll go there. When I want my space, I'll go there. He goes, no, you can't use my office in the shul. Why? You can't use my office in the shul because it's not going to look good. Like the office is supposed to be for me and I'm not using it. So you're going to go use it. It's like we're going to be using the shul for your business, for your classes, and it's not going to look good. So I said, so we have another option. And the other option is I'm going to rent an office. I will take charge of my own tov and I will rent myself an office. And I have things over here that's called WeWork. Even in my building, there's actually storage space that they, charge per meter. I could take a storage space and convert it into an office. So I said, but I will do WeWork. And he said, no, we can't afford WeWork. So I said, the affording, yes, affording, not affording is a separate issue. What I do know is my need, and my need is for an office. So I'm going to start looking for an office to go to. And he said, fine. If that's what you're going to do, I guess I will just go use the office in the shul and start being there more hours in the day and make sure that I'm not home. I will make sure, I promise that I will not be home when you give the class. Now, I was only able to come to that conclusion when I defined myself, first of all, as a wife and not as a beggar. And I defined him as my husband and not as a guard who's standing by to give me my freedom or not to give me my freedom. That's the first thing that I did. And the second thing was the ability to think of how to make my own tov. Just as the previous woman could have taken could have first of all bought a tricycle from Amazon that was assembled. Second, the minute she got it, not and she could ask her husband once and it's not happening, go give it to someone else to do it. And the whole, the whole like consideration, I do have money to do it, I don't have money to do it. If this is something that you want, it's something you want your child to have, you go, you do it, and somehow the money will figure itself out. Hashem will make sure that it will be figured out. And so as to me, if Ralph would have said, I am really going to stay home, then I would have gone out and got myself an office. If the shul was not an option, that's what I would have done. And the finances would have been figured out eventually. If they're in Hashem's hands, they're for Ralph to decide, but I will take care of my own tov. I will take care of my ratzon. I will take care of my need, because if I don't, then I put myself straight in a hell situation. What's a hell? What is hell? What is hell? Hell is when we're in the other person's mercy, when they are responsible for my tov, when Hashem is not responsible for my tov and I'm not responsible for it, but it's in someone else's hands. Just like the tricycle was in her husband's hands, and me, my desire to give my class for that hour and a half by myself, it was in my husband's hands. So hell was someone else's mercy. They're going to decide for me what I'm going to do, what I can do, when I can do it. And Gan Eden is being able to take my destiny into my own hands, being able to take my desires into my own hands and make them happen and allow them to allow them to come to fruition. And it's between me and Hashem. It's not between me and anyone else. My daughter Malka was also, describing something like not so similar, but also it's a matter of, I want to give two more examples of a matter of what it means not to have a gaded, not to have a description around us. Now, when I describe myself as a wife, I need to hold on to respecting my husband and to looking up to him. Looking up to him means I want to hear his Torah. I want to hear his Torah. Now, what is his Torah that he stays home and he likes to do all his things at home? His Torah is like the house is the center of a Jewish person's life. That's his Torah. The house is the center of my life. And he liked to be home because of that. Now, he also has another Torah is, working and getting all my things done is essential to my accomplishment and to my job as a rabbi, which happens a lot more when he took the office in the shul. So he has these two Torot, and I need to look up to him to learn his Torot, and I need to be able to respect him as the man who God gave me, because it's his Torot that I need to learn. God gave him to me because there are things I needed to learn from him, and looking down at him or thinking that, that he has nothing to give me, I totally lose the message that Hashem meant to give me when he put both of us together. So my job in this world is to be able to go and figure out his Torah, to be able to constantly know my definition, who I am, and the boundaries that I want to put around. I want to give two more examples. Hold on 1 minute. Okay. Okay. So my daughter Malka, who's due any minute, is an artist, an art therapist. And for the past couple of years, when she was doing therapy, she was sharing an office space with a friend, which was really uncomfortable for her, going and trying to, and giving in her hours at the beginning of the week. And there wasn't a lot of flexibility, and it didn't work well for her. And at a certain point, she said, you know what? I want to build myself a studio. I want to have a studio. Now, Michal lives in an apartment building that was built 70 years ago, and really, really old apartments. And underneath the apartments, they used to build the bomb shelters. That's where the bomb shelters used to be. And the bomb shelters usually became the place where everyone stored all their junk. It became everyone's storage space. And she decided that she was going to take one big bomb shelter and just empty it all out and turn it into a studio and put like sheetrock walls. And she had a whole plan. And she told her husband, 3 months ago, this is what I'd like to do. And he said, I'm a teacher, and this is the end of the year, and the end of the year is very stressful for me. So I don't want to take any part in it. If you want, you're going to have to do it on your own. And Malka said, great. She was going to do it on her own. And indeed, she created this beautiful studio. Most of the work she did on her own. She asked like from when she was 7 months pregnant, 7, 8, 9 months pregnant, she created the studio. And she's very handy and artistic. And she asked work people how to do it. And she just put someone in to put in the big door and the bathroom. And otherwise she did everything on her own. Now that she has it, she loves it. And now that she has it, she has classes over there, and she does therapy over there, and she does workshops, et cetera, et cetera. Now, she wanted tomorrow to do a workshop for 7th graders. And she told her husband, I want to do a workshop tomorrow. And it means that if I want to do the workshop, then could you please take care of the children? And he said, no, it doesn't work for me. Like, I was with the children already 2 days, and it's too much for me. And I don't want to take care of that. Now, at this point, Malka canceled the class. And she canceled the class, and she was very resentful. So I asked her, what was your definition? When you were standing across from your husband, how would you define yourself? So she said, I define myself as a favor asker. I'm asking a favor. And who was he? He was the favor giver. So she defined, and the minute she defined herself as a favor asker and him as a favor giver, that was the definition. And she couldn't get out of that mold. Like, she couldn't get out of it. And she decided to drop the workshop that she was doing, because she said, the reason I decided to drop it is because I didn't want my husband to become pressured about having to take care of the children. And because once he gets pressured, it's a snowball that rolls down. He has a very hard time getting out of it. And I decided to pass. Now, I asked, so what was your description then when you were saying, I don't want my husband to get pressured, so I'm canceling it because I don't want him to be pressured? She said, I feel like I'm his caretaker. And who is he? He's my patient. I take care of him, and he's my patient. Now, he's her husband, and she's his wife. She's not his caretaker, and he's not her patient, and she doesn't have to take care of him. If he said, no, I can't take care of the kids, it's going to pressure me, she has other options of what she can do. She could get a babysitter. She could ask friends. She could call me up. She could call her mother-in-law up. She has many, many, many options of what she can do. However, because in her married life, she took on the role of the caretaker, which is what we usually do. We take care of our children. We take care of our, that's what we think we should be doing. It's not something we should be doing. We shouldn't be taking care of our children. Our job as parents is to be able to enable our children to have a more independent life. So anything that they could do on their own, like we teach them how to do it, and then we don't have to take care of them. No one wants to be taken care of. No one wants to be done for. People want to be able to be independent and to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and be able to do for themselves and to feel competent and that's how they feel confidence. Like sometimes, I remember when David was little and I sent him to karate and I was waiting for him to finish and another mother also was waiting. And I asked her, like, why did you send your son to karate? And she said, because I wanted to have confidence. Like confidence comes, it's as if, we'll send them to sports and whatever, and they'll get confidence from it. Really, confidence comes from the ability to do for ourselves and to have competency. And the minute we're competent, it doesn't matter with what, with being able to make an egg for ourselves, a meal for ourselves, to do our own laundry, which a 10-year-old could do, to be able to clean up our room, to wash the windows. Any kind of these competencies builds up confidence. So by Malka taking care that her husband does not become stressed, she becomes the caretaker and he becomes the patient. And that's not a place where we want to build a marriage. That's not a husband-wife relationship. So Malka now why didn't she get a babysitter? Because then the babysitter would be in the house with the children and then there would be a whole big mess, because that's what usually happens. Like the house would be flying and then her husband would become stressed and pressured and then it'll just be a snowball that rolls from there. Now, by her canceling her workshop, she didn't allow her husband the ability to grow. In other words, sometimes it's a difficult situation. It's difficult to grow. Growth is difficult, but we need to have faith that people around us have the strength to grow. They're resilient. They're going to figure things out. They're going to work it out. Because she's constantly protecting him from his stress, he never has the opportunity to deal with it on his own. And it puts her in the definition of my husband's caretaker. My husband's, I'm his doctor. And it weakens her husband as opposed to strengthen him. And she might think that she is bypassing a problem that she has to deal with, which is a stressed husband. But at the end of the day, what she'll have is a weakened husband. And that's something that we have a hard time looking up to, because we want to be able to look up to a strong person, but we can't look up to a person that we're taking care of. And so there's another story of creating a definition for myself, creating a definition for my husband. Now, the minute she created the definition of I'm the caretaker and he's the patient, you continuously work and function in that way. And it's hard to break out of that. It's hard to break out of that mold. On to another story of a woman called Batya who did her avodah, and it's gonna be more clear about what a gaded, a fence, and a description is. Okay, so Batya has a friend who keeps on calling her up and wanting to do things with her. She keeps on, do you want to go to the park? And after you light candles, let's get together. And Shabbat afternoon, and let's get together for Sudat Shalishit. And not only does she want to get together with her, she also is, when Batya says, it doesn't work for me, but why? But what are you doing? Or, she'll walk by her house and text her, let's go out for a walk. We have to move our bodies. We need to exercise. Come on, come with me. Let's go together. And at the beginning, Batya really enjoyed that relationship because she really liked to hang out in the park with when she has her children, and she liked to hang out in the park with her, and it was comfortable for her, but it became too much for her. And she just felt like this woman is on top of her all the time, and she has to constantly respond to her and answer her and give her an accounting of what she's doing in the day. Now, when we hear this story, we feel like, okay, Batya has a friend, and let's give her advice what to do in order for her to be able to make this overbearing friend get a life and not bother her anymore. But the truth is that's a solution in the practical world, and we don't want to give any kind of solutions, and we don't want to give her advice how she could have this friendship in a less pressuring way, or do this, do that. We don't want to solve the problem for her, but we really need to realize that Batya is telling us a story, and the story that she's telling us is the way that she walks in this world. And she walks in this world not only with this relationship in this way, but also in other relationships, it comes up. And what is not clear for Batya? What is her issue and her situation in this world? So it turns out that all of us, we have a public persona and we have a private persona. The private person, it's when we're home alone by ourselves, doing our thing, what we want to do, whether in our garden or in our kitchen or cooking or cleaning, straightening, organizing, just doing what's good for us alone in our home. And then that's our private self. And then we have the public self. And the public self, we get to know this public self the minute we step out of our home and we meet other people. The minute I meet someone else, the minute I interact with anyone else, the minute I have a relationship with anyone else, I become the more public person, the public person. Now, one of the reasons that there is such a problem with people not getting married till like an older age, like in Israel, it's a big issue. Like men and women are not getting married till very, very late, is because people love their private life, and they feel that if they get married, they're going to have to give up their private life for the public life. And it's like almost giving up on themselves. And they feel like, now I'm going to get married and I have to divide everything between me and my husband. I'm going to have to compromise. I'm going to have to give up, things that I really want. And so they're scared. They're scared to give up on and to compromise. And people decide just, they don't get married. They're scared to get married. They push it off. They're not wholeheartedly in it. Now, what they don't know is when we are with our private self, we know what we like, and we know, what's good for us, and we know how to do good for ourselves. When we go out to be that public person, we need to know it even more. We need to be much more aware about what's good for us, about what suits us, about who we are, because we don't want to lose the me. We don't want to lose ourselves. It's easy to hold on to myself when I'm alone. And our avodah is not to lose ourselves when we have this kind of togetherness, right? So we need to be able to sort and separate. We need to be able to sort and separate in our life. Now, I want to go back to Batya, and I want to put her story aside. And the question I asked her is, what are you telling me about yourself? What are you discovering about yourself when you tell me this story? And she says, I discovered about myself that I am constantly answering her and responding to her because I feel guilty not to. In other words, I am allowing my fence, right? I'm allowing my fence to be broken down. And the excuse I give myself is because I don't want to be guilty. So in the name of guilt, I allow the fence to be torn down. And I guess when this friend, you and her, how do you define yourself and how do you define her? She says, I define her as bombarding me and me being bombarded. So I'm always like sitting, being bombarded, feeling like, oh my God, what am I going to tell her? How am I going to respond? What does she want from me? What does she want from my life? When is she going to leave me alone? And she sees her as throwing missiles at her, as bombarding her. So this is the definition that she has. Now, this is the definition she has, and this is what she acts accordingly. Now, we need to sort and separate, and we need to say, what definition do I want to have? I want to be, she's my friend, and I am her friend. Now, we all have different kinds of friends in our lives. We have a friend that we like to get advice from. We have friends that we like to hang out at the park. We have friends that we like to play sports with. We have friends that, because we're in the same community, they're our friends. And when she gives birth, I'll give her, like, we have different types of friends. And Batya needed to decide what type of friend does she want this woman to be. Now, why does she have to decide that? She needs to decide because I don't want her to constantly be reactive with what this friend is coming and requesting and wanting to be together. And it's the friend's right to do it. But I want her to be proactive and decide, how many times a week do you want to spend time with a friend? And Batya said, how many times a week? I would like to be with her 1 time a week to 2 hours in the park. That is my definition of friendship with this particular friend. And if that's the case, so Batya could now call her up at the beginning of the week and say, is it good for you Wednesday to meet for 2 hours at the park? I'd love to meet. In other words, you're deciding what's good for you, and you're going out and you're taking charge of your own tov. Now, what happens if Batya continuously tries to break down your fence but do you want to also exercise? And can I come to you after I light the candles? And can we come for some Dasha Lishit? And what are you doing? And when are you going on vacation? And when are you going to the pool? And can I come with you to the pool? Etc. So we need to look at it like when we're on the road, there are a lot of boundaries on the road. There is the white line, and there is the traffic light, and there's a no entrance here, and there's, drive slowly while you're next to a school and faster in the highway. And there are many, many gederot when we drive on the road. And the reason we have these gederot is because they're here, these fences, these laws, they're here to keep us safe. Now, you might say, oh, it's not nice. Why is the stop sign telling me to stop? Like, if there were no laws, we might think that, we'd all have a much easier time getting from place to place. Like, no one's telling me what to do. But the truth is there'd be total chaos and mayhem. And we can't live without the gderot when we're driving on a road. And it's the same when we have a relationship with anyone else. There needs to be boundaries. There need to be gederot, fences. We need to have a description of who we are and who they are. And so you might think if you just allowed, if your fence is down and you could just allow anyone in, you're so nice. But you won't. But in order to have a relationship, we need to have a gaded. We need to have a description of who we are and who they are. And we can't allow anyone to pull down our gaded. It's as if we leave our house open and allow anyone that wants to come in. So Batya, in the name of guilt, allowed her gaded to be broken down. But what it caused is a lot of resentment towards her friend. Now, if she was able to put up a gaded and be able to tell her friend, it works for me once a week. And then the friend, could ask and call or send messages. Batya doesn't need to answer because her friend's definition is she wants to be able to talk to her once a week for 2 hours. We don't have to answer everyone that approaches us. We don't have to answer every request. We can allow people, in other words, the guilt comes from her feelings are going to be hurt. What is she going to think? What is she going to say? Like, and in the name of these sentences, we allow our fence to be broken down. But what we really need to have faith is in people's process to grow, to expand, to be able to see our fence and deal with it, to be able to see our fence and be able to grow from it and realize that I'm going to have to find my entertainment elsewhere. I'm going to have to build something else in my life, so I'm not going to feel lonely. So our ability to define who we are, to build the fence around us, not only does it allow us to have a relationship with other people and a healthier relationship with other people, it allows the other people around us to be able to also grow as they come against my fence and they realize what my boundaries are. Then they have to go back to their own fence and decide how they want to live with these boundaries. And living with these boundaries is actually just like my son-in-law, living with anxiety and deciding how to manage his anxiety is something he's going to have to learn. So we need to have faith in the learning process of the people around us, to our learning process, and realizing that these people that are brought into our lives, that we call them people that maybe don't have boundaries and ask too much, or whatever it is, whatever we are that we're complaining about the people around us, really the people around us are not the story. The story is, where's the avodah that we need to do on ourselves to make, to be able to have our public person and our private person live more at peace with one another. And our public person, when it goes out into the public, whether it is to our community, to our friends, to our family, so that we could be the most me like I am when I'm alone, even more me than I am when I am alone. And that way that is when we really will have a true, mature connection with the people around us. I'm stopping the recording, and if anyone has a question, feel free to answer. Hold on a minute. Let me just, okay, here we go. So a friend of mine called me up with an avodah to do, and with a situation, and I said, oh, this is a great opportunity for an avodah. You need to, so she goes, Michal, do you know the song, Yom Rishon Avodah, Yom Shani Avodah? Michal, every time I call you, it's just more avodah, avodah. So yes, so have a happy and pleasant avodah, because as long as we're alive, we're avodah.
Amen.
Bye guys, have a good day. Have a good day.